everybody, welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan, and today I am joined by a very special guest, and that is Brett Hollyhead. Brett is an up-and-coming author, and also is a voice that I've heard many times all over social media because I follow him on Instagram and TikTok, and I have seen his wonderful work there. And he was also recommended by Anwin Avalon. So if you haven't listened to Anwin's episodes, go make sure you check those out. But Brett, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm blushing at that lovely introduction.
Well, I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so excited to talk about all the great stuff that we're going to talk about. And you have an upcoming book coming out, correct, in 2025?
I do, yeah, in April. It's my first upcoming book with Moon Books. It's called Pagan Portals Sabrina, Discovering the Goddess of the River Severn.
Oh, that's lovely. I actually don't know a whole lot about that goddess, so we're going to talk all about that. So that will be great. So, kind of how did that book come into being? What made you choose that topic to write about?
Oh, so for the past maybe 2 years now, I feel like I've been proselytizing in her name at the moment. I feel like a Christian going around. Have you heard about our Lord and Savior, Havren, Sabrina? But it hasn't quite sunk in yet that the book's come into being now, but I grew up with Sabrina. So originally I'm from the Welsh Marches, so I spent a lot of my time growing up across the border.
Hmm.
So I grew up in Shropshire with my mother and in Wales with my father. And the River Severn is the longest river in Britain, so she flows all the way from the Cambrian Mountains, all the way down into the Bristol Channel in Gloucestershire. And every single day I grew up next to her, I swam in her. So she's always been part of my unique cultural upbringing. We learnt about her in school, and I thought as the years passed by, I kept hearing the same sort of stories told about her without any kind of expansion upon her lore or mythos. And a lot of it did come around from a very Anglo-centric rhetoric. So I thought I'd like to put a bit more emphasis on her Welsh aspects as well as the folklore that I grew up. And the book was born from that.
I love that. That's so good though. I can't wait to
Thank
read
you.
that. And that book, believe that I saw that it comes out in 2025, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. It was supposed to come out around August time, but I think I bullied my publishers to bring it out just a little bit earlier for me.
Hey, that's okay. That's totally fine. We love it when a good book comes out earlier than it's supposed to because then we get access
Yes.
to it earlier than we're supposed to, which makes it even more fun. Now, when I talked to Anwyn about you, she was like, "You absolutely have to talk to Brett about
Oh,
Welsh dragons and serpents." And I'm like, "I don't know anything about this, but I am in. I need to know everything." So she kind of said that you are the, I guess, foremost voice on that. So, kind of tell us a little bit about how dragon and serpent lore works in the Welsh folklore.
yeah. So, personally speaking, I'm part of the coven known as the Cylch, a Sarffes Goch, which is the Coven of the Red Serpent. So we take a lot of our inspiration from the bardic practices of the land of Wales or Cymru, and a lot of that is centered around the folklore and the magic that's inherent within the landscape itself. Which, when you're in Wales, it's inescapable to come across the mighty red dragon.
Mm-hmm.
um, so it's actually a little bit of a misconception because when people look at Wales and the folklore, they perceive it to be absolutely filled or saturated with folklore surrounding dragons, and it's quite scarce, actually. A lot of the folklore that we have around dragons are more related to maybe winged serpents or um, not something that you particularly resonate to be a particular stereotypical dragon. But obviously, when we look at the Welsh landscape, it is the iconic the red dragon, the Draig Goch. And that actually came about from the military conquest of the Romans around in their invasion in the second century. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of scholars believe that the red dragon itself was brought over to Britain when the Romans came in contact with their legions with, I think it's the Dartians and the Sarmatians when they were conquest and fighting over there, who adopted a lot of their dragon iconography, and they used it within their military legions. And when they later left the UK in the 5th century, it was adopted a lot by the Welsh kings, especially the ones in Aberfraw, which is up in Anglesey. And after then, you see the poets start to use it to describe their kings as warlike and stoic and absolutely beautiful in their defense against other people. So it became this emblem of defense, of tenacity in the face of adversity. But then the red dragon itself, in terms of folklore, actually comes from a lot of the mythos surrounding Dinas Emrys, which is where it originates from. So, in the Historia Brittonum, written by Nennius, the folklore of the Red Dragon comes from King Vortigern, who wants to build a castle upon this hill, and every single night it keeps crashing down to the ground. It won't stand up successfully by itself. And so, in order to fix this, he has to sacrifice a boy who's not born of mortal blood. So, this turns out to be Merlin. And when he brings them over to the ground to sacrifice him, Merlin says, the reason why your tower won't stand up is because two dragons are fighting underneath. And when they unearthed these dragons, one was beautifully bright red and the other was white. And every single time the white was taking the upper hand of the red dragon, they would fight continuously until eventually the red defeated the white. And this became almost like a prophecy or a symbol of, even though the Welsh dragon, the red dragon, symbolizes the native British people, are being subjugated by invaders, such as the Saxons, who are represented by the white dragon, they will always be able to defend themselves. And you see throughout history, Wales has suffered quite a lot of colonization from people who've tried to eviscerate the culture and the language, yet we've always stood strong. And so it became that emblematic symbol of triumph, shall we say. And it's also referenced in the one of the stories that's contained in the Mabinogion, such as Llyfr Llefelys, which is where the dragons are captured in Oxford and then buried in Dinas Emrys. So that's where the main myth of that dragon comes from.
I love that. That is such a beautiful story. I
It is.
and you know the funny thing is I know a little bit about Welsh witchcraft and a little bit about the Welsh folklore from Mara Starling, and her beautiful book. And
Oh,
I'm
it's
so
beautiful,
excited
yeah.
for her new one that's coming out as well. And so I'm so excited because this is something that here in America we're not really privy to a lot of the Welsh culture, probably due to unfortunate colonization and the fact that the culture has been tried to be, subjected down and, you know, erased.
Yeah,
But it's so exciting when we have somebody like yourself that is so versed in it and can come on the show and obviously talk about it and breathe new life
thank
into
you.
it and allow people who are unfamiliar like myself and others to learn about it and hopefully keep it alive, which is always important, especially with native cultures. We always want to keep those alive and their stories alive. So how did you kind of come into the process of learning about the dragons? Like, where did your fascination come with it? Was it just something that you were brought up with? How did that come into being?
Oh, so contrary to popular belief, actually, I think that my fascination with dragons probably came a bit later on in my life. So growing up, I was part of a mixed English Welsh family. So
Hmm.
everywhere I grew up, I was basically exposed to the emblem, but it never quite resonated with me. I wasn't very obsessed with dragons as I was more involved with things like fairies, goblins, black dog folklore. I grew up as part of a very spiritual pagan household that gave me the liberty and freedom to explore however I wanted without any kind of repressive doctrine
Hmm.
on my head, forcing me to go with a certain set of beliefs. That, well, saying that, in fact, it wasn't until my early teenage years my mom had almost a spiritual breakdown and said, "Oh my God, you got to go Christian." She forced me into a Christian weekend, which was fabulous. Walking around there to their shock, me high heels and makeup. They loved me. They loved me. But I think my fascination with dragons particularly came about when I was exploring the mythology around the creation or genesis of life, especially in its association with water. So I recently gave a talk with Anwin, and she's absolutely wonderful, in the last Bewitching the Water
Hmm.
Symposium. And I talked a lot about my patron goddess and how she's polysemic in that she has a lot of attributes that are quite similar in other aquatic deities across different cultures. And some of the leading anthropologists and people that study this, such as Veronica Strang, say that a lot of aquatic deities have their origins in water beings or these primordial serpents, which is obviously synonymously used with the word dragon. And I thought, this is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So I delved into it a little bit more on how the dragon itself, what came, well, from an Eastern perspective, was more of a serpentine being that embodied these primordial elemental powers, especially water. And they were
Hmm.
seen as these creatures of great creation and destructive qualities, and how that resonated within my goddess herself, because we have quite a little bit of dragon folklore as well attached to the River Severn. And from there, it kind of just opened up a few more doors and rabbit holes. And since then, I've still been diving into it all.
I love it. It's so good. I think that that's super cool. And it's, when it comes to all the different folklores, especially elemental folklore that ties into a lot of different mythologies and whichever deity that you choose from, there's going to always be some sort of elemental properties to it. And we do see
Absolutely.
dragons in a lot of other cultures as well, but we don't really give them a reference more in a mythological perspective than we
Yeah.
do I guess you could say a pagan or worshiping kind of perspective, which I think almost does them a disservice actually, because we are kind of just, squashing them down and putting them in a box and being like, that's where you belong. And that's like, is it? No.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I completely agree. They're almost seen as these fantastical creatures that are like I said, kind of confined to the idea of mythology that are they real, are they not? But when, I don't know, for me personally, when I look deeper into their lore, they have such fascinating stories attached to them that would have maybe transcended into oral transmission with our ancestors. How, particularly with me personally, with the River Severn, when we look into a dragon folklore, there's always lessons to be learned there, and it tends to connect to environmentalism. So the more that
Mhm.
we mistreat specifically water, the more that it will lash out. And it does take on that personification of a dragon coming to devour all the people who dare to trespass against water. So I think, yeah, for me personally, the dragon definitely has a lot more meaning in a pagan sense, rather than just being some ugly, scaly creature that has some kind of either mythological or biblical reference to it. Because a lot of the time, dragons are represented by the devil. And yeah, we try and stay clear of that. They're a lot more divine than that.
They are a lot more divine than that. And I think that's kind of one of those things of when you really look at the differences between Christianity and paganism. I think that's
Mm.
also one of those references that we see a
Damn the
lot
Book of
of
Revelation.
borrowed texts in the Bible and a lot of borrowed practices. And I think that's more of one of those borrowed practices, more so than the traditional. They're
Mm.
actually a part of our culture, they're a part of our religion, they're beings out there. And, there's a whole practice of just dragon magic on its own, which is fascinating and wonderful. And if you're somebody who practices in that, please put it in the comments because I would love to hear more about your practice as well. The it's not necessarily 100% my practice, which is always great, but I love learning about everyone else's because that gives me the opportunity to grow and learn more as a witch myself. And
Mm.
I encourage anybody who's listening to the show, always look into everyone else's perspective because you never know how it's going to affect yours. And it's going to always be
Absolutely.
a great learning experience. And so the cool thing about this is we get to see all the different elemental aspects. And a lot of times, dragons are associated with fire, but you're saying that you see them more in your kind of culture, that they are more associated with water. And
Mm.
I think that that's a really interesting experience. So, in terms of the different serpents and all of that, do you still see that being more prevalent or becoming more prevalent in terms of the Welsh witchcraft aspects?
Definitely, absolutely. So, the dragons that I perceive within my own experience are absolutely definitely attached to different elements, especially water and more of a telluric feeling as well. So, in my own coven, the Sarffes Goch or the red serpent is definitely tethered to the landscape itself. So, it has that very earthly aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And we perceive that from the tale of Llyf and Llefelys, where they are buried underneath ground. So, they come from beneath the ground where we can draw inspiration and that energy conscious level from. But I think a lot of people who come to Wales and Welsh Marches or anything that's Welsh adjacent will definitely see the dragon as centered in that practice. But the more you delve into it, the more that you'll see that it's a lot more serpentine in the practice of witchcraft itself. So it's more centered around snakes. So I think if you were tending to go towards more a folk witchcraft practice, then I think going towards the snake aspect of it is definitely unavoidable because the cunning folk and different magical practitioners at the time would have utilized snake and snake skin in all different manners. So if someone wants to connect to the ancestral heritage of Welsh folklore and Welsh witchcraft, then the snakes are the best way to go, really.
I love working with snake magic, and living on a farm, we get a lot of snakes.
Oh
And
my God, I
so
can imagine.
I cannot tell you how many times I've had snakes come into my house. None of them poisonous, thank the gods. Hopefully that
Just for the
never
comforting.
happens. um, but I've had numerous snakes come in my house, and usually that's one of my deities. I work with Loki, and Loki is usually the one that's
Oh,
trying to get
wonderful.
my attention. And if I'm not paying attention, I get a nice serpentine critter in my home in some fashion.
Oh, oh, I love that. I adore it. Maybe I should start venerating Loki, get myself a free pet snake.
I mean, I made Loki a deal. I said, "Look, dude, listen, here. I have no problems at all with you sending me non-venomous snakes. I would prefer them not in my home. But, if you're going to do this and you really want my attention, how about this? You help me figure out how to get the funds. I will get a snake tattoo and you can make that thing itch every time you want my attention. Every
I love
time.
that.
The funds have not come yet, but I have also not had a snake in my house since then. So that's okay. we're
Yeah, it's
we're
still a good
working it
sign. It's
out.
progress. It's progress. Let's give him a little nudge with a stick, so hurry up.
But the funny thing about one of the snakes that came into my house, had just shed, and this was what we call black chicken snake here in Tennessee. And
Okay.
they're very long, kind of scary looking snakes. They're all black and they have kind of like a silvery white bottom on them. They're non-venomous, but they are great mouse hunters and critter hunters and all that. And this one had just shed on the side of my house near the tree line. And I didn't know about it until the next day because I found the skin the next day. But when it came in my house, it came through my screen door
Oh
and
wow.
was climbing up my wall above a bookshelf. And this thing was huge. And of course, because when they first shed, they're looking for food, they're tired,
Yeah.
they're hungry, they're cranky, they're just not feeling great. Um, but of course, we tried to get it out. It wouldn't leave, and it ultimately got itself stuck under my couch and ended up injuring itself to the point that we had to dispose of it. Unfortunately,
Oh
these things
bless it.
do happen on a farm. I'm to the animal lovers. We did not do it intentionally. It was its own doing. It didn't realize
It's
what it was
circumstance.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but the interesting thing was I was working out in the garden and my daughter was out there with me and she's like, Mom, I think there's a snake over here. And I'm like, oh, no.
Not
And I'm
again.
like, back up slowly because we have copperheads and copperheads are very poisonous.
Oh
And
no.
so I'm like, back up very slowly. Do not make any sudden moves. And I walk over and my husband walks over and he kind of pokes at it with a stick and he goes, oh, this is a skin. And he picks it up and it's the complete skin of this snake fully intact,
Oh wow.
which is super rare to find them like that. Like it just, even the eyelids were fully intact. The whole thing was intact. It was
Oh, I
crazy.
love that.
And so I still have part of the snake skin. I use parts of it when I need it for certain magical rituals, but it was one of the coolest finds I have found since then. But yeah, using snakeskin in magic is such a profound experience. But if you can find it in the wild on your own and it's a gift to you, great. Obviously, please don't, go searching for
Yeah,
it
the
somewhere
disclaimer.
else.
Don't, yeah.
Yeah, if you are able to find one and it's legal for you to have it, great. If not, then
eBay's
don't.
your best friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get one from someone who has someone that sheds a snake. It's all fine.
Yeah, somebody who has like a pet snake, pet lizard, any of the kinds of those scales works really great. And the funny thing is working with dragon magic, because I have a friend who works with dragon magic, and so I'm starting to kind of look into that. And I have a bearded dragon, and the
Oh,
scales match so perfectly with dragon lore, and I'm just like, I love this. And so every time he sheds, I'm like, give me your skin. It's okay. We're gonna
no,
keep
I
it.
love that. It's almost like a little natural development if it's going to go from snakes, go straight towards lizards.
Yeah,
I love it.
we have tried to have so many different reptiles in our house, and the beardy is the only one who like has done super well. And he basically has adopted himself into almost being one of our dogs because he acts like a dog.
Oh,
And so he plays fetch, he gets all curious, he wants to cuddle. It's a whole thing. And I'm like, okay. And eventually I was one of the ones that I was like, no, I'm never going to be invested in reptiles. And that's my kids, that they will deal with that, not me. And I think I cuddle with the lizard more than my kids do.
I mean, that's completely fair. I mean, I'm sure lizard cuddles are amazing. Do you know, I wish I really had a lizard growing up. I'm more of a cat person. I've
Hmm.
grown up with cats all my life, but I did have a phase where I tried to combat my fear of tarantulas and spiders. So I thought, the best thing to do, have a pet spider tarantula. Awful mistake of my life. Regret it. Never do it again. But I did one day think to myself after reading some things to do with snake skin. I wonder what a tarantula skin would be like because they shed their exoskeleton.
I didn't
Do
know
not bloody
that.
recommend. Yeah, tarantulas shed every so often as they grow, they molt their exoskeleton. And I thought to myself, this would be perfect to use in a magic spell. Do not bloody recommend. Oh my God. So I had a Mexican redleg. And when she molted, bless her, I picked up a little bit and I thought, oh, I want to do a spell to irritate someone. They're getting on my nerves. I want to throw it right back at them. And the New World tarantulas are known to flick hairs when they're irritated or perceived threat.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, perfect correspondence. But unfortunately, before I had a chance to even incorporate it to my spell, the hairs went all over me and I was itching for days. Oh, I felt like I had
Oh no.
bloody fleas. It was awful. Do not recommend spider skin. But yeah, lizard and snake skin, absolutely.
I would say maybe use gloves with the
Oh,
spiders.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
that's interesting. I didn't know that. Now I'm kind of like I have a whole thing with spiders where I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I'd rather burn the house down and run away than just deal with them. It's why I have to get my partner to come catch me. 6 foot, he can deal with them.
Right. Like the only spiders I allow in my house are the daddy long legs, and that's because they obviously don't hurt anything. And so I'm
Mm,
like, y'all can live in the house. You can eat the little gnats or anything that come inside. That's fine. But if you
yeah,
come close to me, you have signed your own eviction notice. So
absolutely. They can live in my house as long as they pay rent. It's completely fine.
yes. I love that so much. So obviously you have the new book coming out. What other projects are you working on that you would like to maybe talk about or tease?
Oh, this is where I delve into my little secrets now.
Oh, tell us all the
Um,
secrets.
I'm so surprisingly, normally this is kind of the end of the festival season in the UK, so everything starts to quieten down, obviously towards Samhain or Halloween time where things really start to pack
Hmm.
up. But for me, it's just a constant workload at the moment, and I'm very thankful for it. So, yeah, my first book's coming out next year, but I'm also in the midst of writing my second book.
Lovely.
Um, I can't uh, delve into that too much, but I can give a little clue to say that it'll be a very much more expansive outreach compared to the first one I wrote on
Hmm.
my landscape and my home. So it'll be diving into the folklore and magic of the landscape. I've currently submitted a few more blogs. I'm a Moon Books blogger now, so my first article will be all about the folklore and the customs surrounding the scarecrow within the harvest traditions of Britain. So that'll be
Lovely.
coming out very soon. And then the next couple of events I have an event in Scotland next weekend teaching tasseomancy. And what else have I got coming up? So there's so much. I'm just trying to think of all the ones I've got coming up. There's I'm taking part in a video conference on ancestral pathways, exploring the giants of the Welsh landscape and of the Welsh Marches.
Oh,
So that'll be
that'll
a
be
really fun one.
neat.
Yeah. So it's really exciting at the moment. There's a lot more projects for me to endeavour down, but it's all going to come together hopefully until then I just have to drown my sorrows in gin and hopefully get a good night's sleep because at the moment I'm down so many rabbit holes. It's just keeping me wide awake. I've got to get all this stuff down and written.
I completely understand that and feel that in my bones. Too many projects, too many things, too many great things.
Not enough
But
time.
not enough hours in the day, and I need like a, you know, 24-hour day where I don't have to sleep and I don't have
Yes.
anything else to do and have all the focus. I would get so
Yeah.
much done. That would be so great.
Yeah. I've always been the same. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'll just endure the eye bags that come with it. I'm sure it'll be fine.
I love that so much. So you have some really great projects. I'm excited about the Giants thing. That sounds really cool.
Oh,
Which I
thank you.
don't know so much about, which now you're just gonna have to come back on the show and we're gonna have a whole episode about
Oh,
Giants.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you.
So we will have to do that. Now obviously I've already told everybody I follow you on social media. Where can everybody go to find you, keep up with all your work, all that good stuff?
So yeah, the best place to probably find me is social media. So I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I do apologize in advance because half the time when I'm on that, I either act like a real big buffoon or prancing about like a little fairy, or I'm either half naked pole dancing. But yeah, Instagram, Threads, the usual social media, anywhere you can find me, really.
I love it. So everyone, I will make sure all those links are included in the show description for you.
Oh,
I
thank
will
you.
also make sure that is the book available for pre-order or not yet?
Not just yet. No, I think it'll be ready in the next month or so. I think, but as soon as it is, I'll be posting links and
Okay.
all my endorsements to go with it.
Okay, perfect. So we will make sure that all of that is included for you
Oh,
and
thank
all
you.
that good stuff. So, and obviously, just stay on top of Brett's social media. You'll have all the links at your disposal that way. And make sure you follow for all the really great, fun videos because I always get a nice giggle every time I see one of your fun videos, especially when you
Oh,
guys are
thank you.
teaching. You guys teach in such a fun, interactive way that is such a wonderful experience. And I'm just like, I want to go hike through the woods and look for mushrooms with you. This
Oh,
sounds like
please
a
do.
wonderful plan.
Oh, you're speaking my language. Oh, I'm getting excited at the thought of that.
I honestly and truly have an obsession with mushrooms to the point that my husband probably is like, please, God, why?
Oh, do you want to know a secret bit of trivia? So, if you follow my partner Moss, he often wears
Hmm.
like a
I
mushroom
do.
jumper. So that jumper originally belonged to me. I bought it for myself, but then it didn't fit me. So I thought, oh, you know what, babe, you can have this jumper. And now it gets all the attention for it. And I'm like, what about me? I'm a star. How dare you?
I love it
But
so
no, we
much.
love it.
So yes, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, obviously, for being a part of the show. Make sure you go follow Brett and all of his wonderful endeavors. Also, follow his partner, who's also amazing, just for the record. And I will make sure all the links are in the show description to everything, so you guys have all those at your disposal. But most importantly, make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to each other. And we will see you all next time. So bye-bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.